All right. I am Michael Cox. I am the owner and lead developers of Templarius Studios and the lead developer on our current project, Yoltrund, if you're wondering how to pronounce that.
Yoltrund.
Yep,
Oh, okay.
Yoltrund. Pronounce exactly how it's spelled.
I cannot pronounce that. That's awesome. I can pronounce the name of your game. In a nutshell, what kind of game are we talking about?
It's always hard describing Yoltrund. It's a mix and mash of a lot of things. I try and describe it as a adventure-based or a story-based RPG. It's basically going through and experiencing a story while using the elements of the story as mechanics. So, like the most recent thing with Pride, which is the most recent example, is since so far there hasn't been a real threat in the game, here you're probably thinking, okay, this game's going to be easy, it's not going to be all that hard, and now I'm slamming you with a mechanic that should be hard. I don't want to talk too much about the mechanic. But that's kind of what it's like. It's basically experience the story and go through the story. Imagine like Dear Esther, but with more mechanics.
Why did you choose to go with a lot of mechanics?
It's more or less because Yoltrund is a story that has many different meanings to it. It has many different things that tests the main character of the original story. So using these mechanics help test. It's kind of like having a Mario game with like a Mushroom Kingdom level, and then an ice level, and then a lava level. You know, changing it up just enough to be different, but in different ways to test the player.
Okay. Why did you choose to make a game like this?
Well, originally it was supposed to be super simple, like something that could be done in a month. And I wanted to use this as a stepping stone to my next RPG, known as June Sarag. Don't have to worry about pronouncing that. But it really was supposed to be like simple, going through different scenes and experiencing it. So it seemed simple to do. And then when actually creating the prototype, I realized how difficult it will actually be. But I stuck to my guns because I don't want to release June Sarag without some kind of precursor to it. Because it's all really, really, really new and really weird. So
okay.
That's more why I chose to start with Yoltrund. It's an easy stepping stone that I can start with the basics of the story, specifically one character in particular who you'll see in the next game, and then go from there.
So the other game with the unpronounceable name, that is it's kind of the prequel to Yoltrund.
Yeah. So the Yoltrund is a precursor to it. So start with Yoltrund, gets you familiar with the world, and then June Sarag, where it has everything from this lore. So it's kind of a good intermediary point. Imagine playing. Imagine if Witcher 3 was less friendly to new players, and you just jumped in right into it. There's a lot that you don't know what's happening. That's what Yoltrund is. It's going to introduce very briefly a lot of these different characters, as well as explain a different side of one specific character who you'll see. And then that way, when Yoltrund or June Sarag comes out, it's not going to be crazy. It's not going to be overloading.
It's gonna help the player.
Yep.
So you will make like packs for Steam too, so you can buy both games at once.
Yes, that will definitely be an option.
Okay. Did the game become what you originally planned it to become?
Nope. Again, it was supposed to be something super simple, walk through a small scene and speak with people. And here I'm talking about and currently programming a complex mechanic to test your pride. So it didn't become, it's not what I expected it to be, but it's not that in a bad way. It's actually coming along very decently, especially when I brought in 3D levels. Well, just 2.5D. It's not really 3D. But when I brought that in, the game really evolved into something I really liked. So, yeah, it changed. It's not what I planned, but it's in a good way.
Okay. What inspired you to become an indie game developer?
It probably goes back to when I'm like really young, like a wee lad, where the first game I wanted to make, ironically, was a Pokemon game, and sometimes I still want to do that. But it's more.
You can, but you can't use actual Pokemons. Then you would have to make up your own Pokemons.
Yeah. I remember the first design I thought of was actually a Pokemon MMO. Using like from the Kanto region all the way up to Hoenn, Sinnoh at the time. And I'm kind of mad at myself because I was prototyping something like that, but I couldn't figure out multiplayer. And then Pokemon Revolution Online came out, so I'm like, dang it. But that's more what started me on the path, especially when I began prototyping that. The process of prototyping it and programming it and creating the art, that really got me hooked onto game development. And then after I finished my term in the National Guard and failed mechanical engineering at school, it's the next best thing I could do.
You failed your school?
Yeah, more for financial reasons.
Ah. Well, I didn't go to school either.
It's alright.
What did inspire you to... Yeah. I already asked that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot to set a line on that. Sorry.
It's alright.
That's proof that I'm human. Is this the first game that you made?
Oh no. Counting a lot of prototypes, I've done a lot. My portfolio is big of just things I have done and tested and prototyped over an afternoon and sometimes longer. But no, this is by far not my first game. It's my first game using a complicated system like the punishment system that changes the game based on the choices you make. Oh, excuse me. But past that, it is not my first one. It's not the first one I've ever done. Not even the first one I've done in this engine. So, no. Simple answer, no.
What platforms did you intend to release this game?
It was originally PC only. I can't talk too much about future plans, but it is possible this may come to a Nintendo platform after the early access phase is done. But again, I don't want to talk too much about that.
You don't want to talk about which Nintendo platform? Why not? That's a part of marketing.
Well, it's more like I'm contractually obligated not to say.
Okay. You should change the contracts. It's good for marketing. Trust me.
I pretty much can't say anything official until we're actually coming up with the marketing resources and everything, and I have the license and everything, so that's why I can't say anything yet.
Ah. Well, if you need help finding your marketing people, just come to me. But that's for another for another thing.
I got you.
What do you think is your best attitude in life?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just do stuff. You remember? Did you watch the Batman trilogy with like Heath Ledger? Well, basically Heath Ledger as a Joker describes things like, I'm like the dog chasing the cars. I don't know what to do when I get the car, but I'm gonna chase it. I just do stuff. That's kind of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we might be pretty much the same. If the bone looks more delicious on the other side, we go to the other side.
Because, duh.
Yeah.
pretty much.
For how long have you been working on Yoltrund?
The first prototype was drafted around October, just a little bit before my last game came out.
Which October?
I'm sorry?
There has been a lot of Octobers. Which October?
Last October.
Okay, October 2017.
Yeah. When, the same year Shadow of War came out. Because I made that mistake. But I would say around then, and then development officially started in December. So, yeah.
What was your day-to-day process for making this game?
It depends on what I'm doing. If I'm basically going through the whole I'm going to just to answer this, I'm going to describe how a canto is designed, how an update is designed. Basically, I start by because I have a list of notes from the original story that I took of things that I want to do. I go back over those, kind of make a list of things I want to try and things I don't want to try. I then begin creating the scene, and kind of designing the feel. So I start making a general layout, maybe some basic effects, as well as set the framework to properly work with the scene, because this game uses a lot of systems. So I have to make sure they all agree with each other as soon as the scene is made. And then I just go through design, like what the feel is going to be, how the player is going to move, how are they going to be scaled to the environment. I change their scale appropriately. I then begin composing the music, because if I have the music, I can create everything else from there. That's actually how this update specifically started with its new mechanic. And then from there, implement the music, program the mechanics or anything like that, design the layout, the complete layout, decorate and everything, and then just add characters with a lot of dialogue. I think the game is up to like 3,000 different lines of dialogue right now. And then once I finish adding the characters, I test it, balance it, make sure everything's clean, make sure it transitions properly, and then update. So when it comes to day-to-day, it more or less depends on what the actual plan is. Am I already designing the level, or am I composing the music, or am I just doing art?
So
Depends.
you're pretty much doing everything yourself.
Yep, this is a solo project right now.
Okay. Will this process be the same for other potential future games you will make?
No. The next game specifically, I've already confirmed it is not going to be early access at all. It will take 2 or 3 years to make, but it will not be early access in any way. So the schedule is going to change drastically. Like, the whole game's going to be built first, with all the basic gray boxing, if you know what that is. Do you know gray boxing?
No. I do. You make a prototype of the game, but you use gray boxes as your characters before you actually make them.
You use like.
I do know things.
Yeah. So it would just be a lot of gray boxing of everything, and then adding content over time. So I'd have to really figure out what the schedule will be, and I'm bringing in a few more people on that. A lot of people I can't name just yet. Ooh, excuse me. So it will more than likely not be the same. We're going to change things up a little bit.
Okay. What were your biggest inspiration for making this game?
More or less the story that I wrote years ago, which was already inspired by Dante's Inferno. There we go.
Okay.
As for the game itself, I just kind of went down a route of, I want to do this my way. And that's how I did that.
Well, I think it's really important for a game developer to make a game that really fits him, because if he doesn't do that, the game becomes something that isn't really what he is passionate about, and then the game can't become whatever he wants it to be.
Yep, pretty much.
What do you think that makes this game different from others?
Number one, it's completely unique lore. So never been written before. It's all an entirely new learning experience. It's not like playing a game about. I'm trying to think. It's not like playing Yoltrund, which is about the Nordic afterlife, and then playing God of War. You're going to be seeing a lot of same characters, maybe portrayed in different ways. No, this game is completely unique. All of the characters are originally designed with maybe nods to other pieces of literature. So it's all completely unique story-wise. And as for the mechanics, we try and come up with different ways to amplify different characteristics of the story. So I would say if you're going for a unique experience, a unique story and everything, with a game that takes a lot of that into account, that's what Yoltrund is. And so far, I can think of a few that are like it, but nothing exactly like it. Prime example, Dear Esther, but with way more mechanics.
What do you think is the most interesting part of the game?
It would be two different things. Number one is the way each mechanic will work in with the story, like what we're planning to do with Pride, what we did for The Lost. Parphoria was kind of Parphoria was a different story altogether. But it would probably be seeing what is the game going to test me on. Especially if you're branded. If you chose the sin of the branded, good luck. But especially if you chose that, it's seeing how the game will respond, because a lot of it is randomly generated. Like how the game will respond to you is randomly generated, or procedurally generated, to be correct. So just seeing how the game would respond. But story-wise, it would be one of the characters known as the Master. The wiki kind of goes on a lot of information about the Master, but you just don't know who the Master is, what he pertains to you, why is he so interested in you, and why does he seem so close to the king? Trying to see who and what he is. Because so far it's been revealed he is a servant to the king in some way, but in what way hasn't been described. So you don't really know why he's interested in you, why he's helping you, why he keeps disappearing on you and then reappearing, and why he's so knowledgeable. None of that is known. So that would probably be the most interesting part, is seeing who the heck is he.
What engine are you using, and why did you decide to work with that?
It's using the Unity engine, specifically Unity 2017.1. And it's mostly because the other engines we had was Game Maker, which personally I am not a huge fan of Game Maker. I like the simplicity of it, but it's way too simplistic. The other option was Unreal, which Unreal was nice, except Unreal doesn't handle kindly to 2D projects, specifically 2D top-down. It does not take very kindly to that. So those two were out. We were left with Unity or creating our own, which I was about ready to do it myself, but having Unity at the time was a little bit easier to use. It took out a lot of the guesswork, and we basically had an environment. From there, we had to add a lot more systems, like the orc framework system, the fungus system, program the punishment system, the tile mapping system. But once we got all those in, it became a perfect match for Unity. So it's pretty much just convenience, familiarity, that, and I personally like programming in C# more than I do C++.
Okay. Well, I can imagine not liking C++.
Yeah.
What setbacks did you encounter during the project, and what did you learn from that?
A lot of it was the limitation of what we were working with. Not only, well, actually more specifically me. Because I've been okay with art, but this would be the first project where I'm actually having to draw and create a lot of specific art. So this was a test of my patience with art as well as animating, which there's a reason why the player did not have walking animations for a long time. Just saying that. Other than that, it would be constantly, can I do this? And more often than not, I can go ahead and do it, but it's just more planning around it. I can't tell you the amount of times I had to redo the curl dev update because there was just so much. It kept going wrong, because it was the first time that it was going to feature a 3D environment but still act as a 2D game. That was the biggest setback, was how am I going to do this? The easy way was just to create a 2D map, but it just felt better and looked cooler to just use a 3D map. So I had to create a 3D environment but still treat physics and everything like that as 2D, which is not easy. So that was the biggest one, but it helped me learn how to overcome that, and then I eventually used that to create a same 3D environment for the Challenge of the Lost, and found a way around that. That was a huge one that took a while because of how the map generates. So I had to make sure it generates appropriately. So just a lot of that going on. Basically, once I want to try a 3D map, that took a while, a long time, and no sleep. And then after that, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing 3D again. I'm not doing 3D for this game.
If you could go back in time, what would you do different?
It would probably be how I use Orc Framework. Maybe try and design something a little more a Shadow of the Colossus like, but less like the Dante's Inferno game like. More like you're trying to fight your way through this hell, but you're not killing like the king or anything like that. Nothing God of War like, no. So maybe if I was a little bit more patient with the Orc Framework system and probably a little more ambitious, I would probably do that. And maybe if I had more time. So that would probably be the one thing I would do.
If you can advise a new indie game developer, what would you tell him?
Heuristic. Get your heuristic and everything done first. Don't be like I did, where I wrote physics for 2D game and then decide I want to try a 3D map but still treat it as 2D and then try to work with those physics. Don't do that. Just develop everything the way it should be first. Don't try and expand too much into it, because now I'm like, yeah, I have the ability to use a 3D map in Yoltrund. I don't think I'll ever do it again. So that would be the big thing. Make up your mind first. It's one of those things I keep forgetting myself. Everyone forgets it.
What do you feel is success for an indie game developer?
Shipping a project. Like actually finishing and shipping a project on time that people will enjoy. That's the that would be definition of success in my opinion. If you make a happy buck, sure. I'm like Bob Ross at this point. Just make it. Don't worry about it. When you make it and then you ship it, like when it's finished, then that's success, because it's really easy to start a project, but it's not as easy to finish a project.
So it doesn't even have to be good?
Well, try your bloody best. But I mean, charge money for something that will be good. Main thing, if you're going to ship it. But other than that, focus on getting it out of the door as best, not as fast as you can, but as best as you can. The best quality product. So,
to make other
also,
developers learn, what resources would you recommend?
Well, main thing is doing it yourself. Get familiar with the engine. The reason why I'm able to do all the stuff that I'm able to do in Yoltrund is because I'm that familiar with the engine. I'm incredibly familiar with the ins and outs of it, and I know how to rewrite a lot of different things. I could rewrite the physics system if I wanted to. I just choose not to because I'm not that crazy. But that would be the main thing, literally downloading the engine and then playing it, or playing around with it, getting familiar with it. You have a bunch of tutorials, such as Unity has a huge documentation and a learning and answer base on top of a lot of YouTube tutorials. So that's where I would start. Figure something you want to mess around with it, then start looking online, in that order.
What do you think about the current marketing strategies for the indie game industry?
I'm glad you specified indie game industry, because I have such a bone to pick with the AAA industry. But it's more, don't try to promote yourself as the next best thing. Like, the next RPG I'm going to work on is going to be huge, but I'm not going to promote it as the most ambitious game ever. I'm not going to say it's the biggest indie game of all time. Neither going to be the successful indie game of all time. Instead, I'm going to say this is what it's like. It's up to you. So try a lot of that. Don't try and overhype it, because a lot of overhype from an indie developer is a lot of sad. To back that up with a story, or not quite a story, but an example, is the amount of times I go onto Twitter and I find a lot of, because I speak Japanese, so naturally Twitter's like, hey, here's this Japanese thing for you. But a lot of indie Japanese developers use the Unreal Engine, and I'll see like incredibly beautiful particle effects or cool combat system, but it still uses the default Unreal Engine assets, like the Unreal Mannequin. If you're going to do that, you might as well take that out, and specifically focus on getting it functional before making it pretty. That way, when you want to show stuff like that, you have a more complete product instead of a Unreal demo scene that, for all we know, could be an Unreal asset. So that'd be the main thing. Don't show unfinished stuff. Show more complete stuff, even if it sucks. It's like having a sign with one really bright light bulb and none of the others on. You want, even if the light's going to be dim, it will look prettier if all the lights are on. That kind of deal. So that'd be the main thing. Show a lot of your finished stuff, as well as, or somewhat finished stuff, things that you are comfortable showing. And I also recommend going back and showing like early, like pre-alpha footage, and then showing what the game looks like now, the closer you get to release.
Where do you see the indie game market going in a few years?
I could see it going some really good places, depending on the AAA industry and how it's going. The downside is that with the indie game market, there's a lot of developers, and not enough consumers. So everyone's wanting to make a game, and a lot of the modern engines make it stupid easy to do that, but there's not enough of an audience. So I don't I want to say if the AAA market ends up going through exhaustion, which is one of the things I predict, then we'll start seeing a rise in the indie game market. But I'm afraid that with that, it's going to start being like the mobile market, which is just so oversaturated that creating a mobile app is pointless. I mean, unless you're going to make something like a PC game and a mobile version, there's no point. It's just so oversaturated. So that's what I'm hoping is not what's going to happen.
Why are you so negative about the AAA industry?
A lot of things. A lot. Specifically, amongst the specifically the loot box craze. EA, Konami, and Activision Blizzard and we've never gotten along. I know some people in EA and Activision, not anyone in Konami. And Konami I have an extreme hatred for right now. But, and I respect EA and Activision. I respect what they do, and they do occasionally put out some good games. But it's more EA and what they did recently. And I'm talking like after the Battlefront 2 thing. I think that's too little too late. The game is pretty and it's fun, but I can't get past that. I may give it another try, but I think it ended up like Destiny 2 for the most part before the new expansions are coming out. But it's like after the whole loot crate controversy that EA started, and now that they're looking at regulation, they're sticking to their guns with FIFA. And I'm not too surprised that they're keeping the player packs in FIFA, because it does make them a lot of money. But I'm just surprised that they're pulling up the player choice defense. I'm basically coming across as Jim Sterling on this. Jim Sterling and I actually share a lot of views on the AAA market, but it's more like I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed still. That and EA thinking that adding loot crates to a Star Wars game was a great idea. I really want them to think about that.
Well, they just want to make money.
Yeah, money in the wrong ways.
But what did Destiny do to you?
It's like Activision Ubisoft specifically has said in their shareholder meetings they do not want to make games anymore. They want to make more live services. I'm okay with that. Problem is, there's so many different games as services right now that it's oversaturated. Remember when Titanfall 2 came out?
Yeah, no one bought it.
Exactly, because we had Battlefront 2 and World War 2 all at the same time. It's like, well, if I already have this one, well, I'm not going to get that one. I don't need it. So that's the problem. That's why I really don't like Ubisoft's stance on it. And then we have God of War that came out. This is why Ubisoft was scared. Everyone was playing Fortnite. God of War came out. Everyone was playing God of War. And then now that God of War is now finished, everyone around this time is finished with the game, they went back to Fortnite. That's their defense. My stance on it is, yeah, that's the case. It's a single player game. But now, 5 years down the line, if someone picks up a PS4 and gets that game, they're not left out because the servers are shut down. Yep. That's where I said on that. They can still enjoy the game. But they don't see it that way.
That's why I really like single-player games. I have never played Fortnite. I know it's free, but why would I play a free game that is online? Because I know that I will not enjoy my time in it, so I don't bother downloading it.
Yeah, I tried it. The same thing I did with PUBG, and I'm like, yeah, I could see how this is a success. I'll probably write a good in-depth review over it, and I do like Epic's business decisions regarding the game right now. I do not respect Blueholes right now. Bluehole is basically bringing out lawsuits for the stupidest reasons right now. So their initial stance against Epic, I could understand. They probably had a non-competition agreement. But Bluehole has just gone some really dark places I don't like. So
Well, I have also never played PUBG, so...
Yeah. You probably saved yourself there. So, yeah, that's where I sit on that. I'm negative towards the AAA industry, but I'm positive to the ones that actually show promise, and I'm positive to games themselves. And yes, I do have to cut some criticism over to Monolith. Anyway, moving on.
But we are even on that. I don't like multiplayer games either. Have you ever worked for other gaming companies?
Quite a bit. More or less a lot of consultation and a lot of remote stuff. I recently did some programming work for Loot Tech Studios before, well, basically the project fell through. So, but before that, I did some consultations with JagX, and I did a little bit with Hi-Res. So, as for physically working on a game, I think Hi-Res was more the closer I got. So yeah, I've worked with quite a few, but more on a consultation basis.
Did you do any gaming education at school, or did you learn the development process on your own?
I originally learned the development process on my own, and then I went to school for an associate's degree, and I think I'm considering pursuing a bachelor's right now. But that's all after the fact, mostly so I have a piece of paper saying, hey, I know what I'm doing. Because it's good to say I know what I'm doing, because I've had 5 years in the industry before I even went to school for this career, so that'll say a little bit.
Well, we are done with the gaming questions. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yoltrund is on sale right now for 59 cents. That's it.
That's really cheap. Why did you choose to go that cheap? That's like super cheap.
Because it's the spring Humble sale. It's only available on Humble Bundle. And I'm doing that in anticipation for the next update. On top of that, it is literally the best deal Humble will let me put that game to.
Oh, okay.
And on top of that, the prices for the game is looking at being changed maybe in the next month or so. I don't want to change it too soon, and I don't want to change it too late. Because right now it's a really good deal for what you're getting, even at the base price, which is $2. But it's like, yeah, I do want to consider looking into that because I want to see how much the full game is going to be. So this is more like you're basically getting yourselves a fantastic deal right now, and I want to provide that. And if Humble let me put the game out for free, sure.
Well, you could try it. You can try it. You can get enough free games on Humble Bundle, so why not?
Yeah, it's just more like scheduling and finding out when would be a good time to do it. But it's like, nope, with this curated deal, I want to make sure you get a really good deal.
Okay. Then we go to a personal question now. Where did you grow up?
A lot of places. Specifically, I was born in Kansas City, where I spent a lot of my youth, like middle school and freshman year high school. Went down to Springfield, Missouri, and went to high school there. Went to college and National Guard in Rolla, Missouri, not far from St. Louis. And then after that was done, I went back up here to Kansas City. So pretty much a lot of places.
Wow.
Yeah.
What were your childhood interests?
I remember being like 11 years old and listening to Michael Jackson and playing Pokemon games while watching anime. I'm pretty sure that sums up my childhood.
Well, it's the same childhood as a lot of people our age.
Yeah. I think it also helped because I was homeschooled for a while before going to middle school, which was my first time in public school. So yeah, I didn't really do that much. Even after that, I took like minor interest in fencing, which now I'm a trained swordsman, ironically, with 3 different types of weapons, and a little interest in the army. I'm a National Guardsman, and story writing. That's what I did early, and I still sometimes do that. No, that was pretty much it. Just Michael Jackson. Oh, a lot of Van Halen. Like a lot. I listened to a lot of Michael Jackson, but a lot of Van Halen. I cannot emphasize how much Van Halen I listened to growing up. It is sad. Anyway, but yeah, that pretty much sums up everything from my childhood.
Okay. Your childhood was like 2 years?
It seems like it. It seems like it.
I did a lot more in my childhood. I mean, I played outside.
As we were saying earlier, I played outside when my Game Boy needed to be charged. That was it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot blacksmithing. I took on blacksmithing early on. Oh well.
Okay, that's a weird hobby for a child.
I mean, early blacksmithing was beating metal. I didn't heat anything unless it was with a blowtorch. Now I have like a whole literal furnace that I use, and I create Damascus style metals. And yeah.
That's a strange hobby, but do you make like things that are really awesome, or is everything you make like things you pretty much can throw away directly after?
A combination of things. Sometimes I make like some cool little metal thing, or I saw something from an earlier project that I'm like, ooh, if I mess with this a little bit, it might be functional. But no, I did a lot of weaponsmithing specifically. So I did a lot of knives, a lot of blades. I have not done a cutlass. I've wanted to do a cutlass for a long time, but never got around to it. But I made things like a lot of bastard swords. I made 1 claymore and several katanas.
Okay. Well, that's yeah, a hobby I would not have thought about.
Yeah. Ironically, all that knowledge will actually be helpful for the next RPG. So, yeah.
I hope so. So in the next RPG you will be blacksmithing?
That will be a skill you can do in the game. Yes.
Just like World of Warcraft.
Yeah, pretty much. Also because we're going to be doing motion capture for the next RPG. So it's going to be interesting.
Nice. But I'm out of questions.
Sounds good.
Do you want to say anything else?
That pretty much sums that up for me.
Okay, then we are done.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
I'm probably the most boring person you've interviewed.
No, you're actually a lot of fun.
Sounds good.
All the links to your game and website and everything you have will be in the description below.
Yep.
Yeah, and any added information as well.
Seems legit. You can't see right now, but I'm doing like 10 thumbs up right now, which isn't even possible because I only have 2 thumbs. So just imagine that. It's like the whole scene from Infinity War going on right here with like Doctor Strange. Spoilers.
If I was a really good painter, I would paint that, but I'm a terrible painter.
Just for that, I may toss that somewhere in this game. Keep an eye out for that. There's a lot of Easter eggs in this game. You don't know what you could find.
You with 10 thumbs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? I'll toss that in.
But thank you for doing an interview.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me, mate.